Things that are going on today, a lot of the merchants have these incredibly makeshift systems for how they do the tracking and reporting. I don't think that's a sustainable way to look at things either. So really, as the market evolves, it's important to kind of take a look at all the different constituents and make sure that we're delivering value across.
So what about all the downstream pain points? I mean, it's funny, there's a ton of research about someone will try doing a discount or a deal with one provider, and then they'll switch to somebody else. And it sounds great in practice. I think they're kind of searching for this kind of ephemeral ROI. How do they actually get something that works for them? But on the other hand, when I look at that, I just think back to, geez, they're doing all these deals. They're all going to be different with all these providers. And it's going to turn into a bit of a mess. Have you guys seen that with some of the folks that you work with or some of the merchants? Are there so many deal providers out there that merchants are just getting confused and they just don't have a way to work with it?
I'm not sure about on the merchant side, but on the user side, certainly. I mean, there's burnout and fatigue, which was addressed earlier, and I think companies like the Deal Map and those aggregators are going to solve those problems where you'll be able to filter and sort of categorize the type of offers that are most relevant to you as a consumer, because there's just too much noise right now in the marketplace.
What do you think?
I mean, I would say simply put, on the merchant side, it's sort of a reboot, if you will. Merchants' expectations are predicated to assume a model, and I think new companies, ours included, are bringing different, I would say more data-backed models to this, so that based on transactions, you can segment effectively, you can target effectively, and not sell skydiving or pizza to everyone, but to skydiving enthusiasts or pizza aficionados. So I think it's changing the paradigm and maybe broadening it. That's what's, I think, the biggest challenge and maybe the biggest opportunity is going in and having a reset with folks.
My wife keeps sending me skydiving coupons. She's like, maybe you should try this.
Wonder what she's trying to tell you.
No, exactly. So what do you think about that? Are there data issues like you talked about in the back end?
Data issues in terms of?
In terms of the ability to kind of look across offers and see what people are actually processing.
Absolutely.
Making sure you're doing the segmentation the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we don't even have the baseline metrics across the board. So it's just incredible to talk to some of the deal companies and get a sense that they don't even know offers sold and redeemed. And I think, without that baseline set of data, in many cases, it's really hard to do any of the more advanced targeting, segmentation, and loyalty campaigns. I think that is sort of the base fundamental that does need to get addressed.
So we were doing, back at the time, a lot of stuff with matching and pitching, going into the credit card, the people that opted in, going into the credit card transactions, pulling them out that they said it was okay, and then actually trying to figure out the best offers to serve to them. So I mean, some fairly, at the time, some fairly sophisticated things. And one of the things that I was struck with is merchants, they loved it. They got it. They're like, look, this is like, they didn't use this phrase at the time, but it kind of was like the ultimate pay for performance, right? I pay for when I acquire a customer, and you can argue about whether or not the economics are actually perfect and what actually works, but fundamentally they understood the concept. The issue was it was hard to get the data and hard to do tracking, and there's a ton of privacy issues around it. We just couldn't, we just kept hitting wall after wall after wall. Are those going to get solved? Are we really going to be able to do this kind of thing?
Well, I think on the data front, Gary just talked a little bit about that. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that merchants come in all shapes and sizes, right? So I think what we were trying to do in this industry is get more and more merchants to play. So the bigger guys are definitely much more sophisticated and expect to go through that kind of work to do the pre-analysis of a campaign and do the post-analysis and so forth. And then when we went out and talked to a lot of the merchants that participate in the daily deal space, it's a very different conversation. One woman told me that she started doing this because her daughter told her it was cool, and she had to get into it and try it. So the expectations are very different, and it really, really varies across.
By category.
And by category.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people express concern about the privacy issues. But within our own company, we see it as an opportunity to actually help the consumer side. So we only track anonymous data. So if, for example, a user sees an ad for purchasing flowers from FTD for Valentine's Day or something, they complete this offer and then they're rewarded in the game or in the social network. We can then show them another offer for, say, Godiva chocolates. And that's actually a value to the user. We're not tracking anything about their personal information, and we're just being able to give them better things that they would like to interact with.
So let me ask each of you, given the kind of like the breakage in the back end, and I know there's a ton of things happening that are coming down the line that are pretty exciting because we get to talk to folks all the time. Each of you give me one thing, one innovation that you think is coming in the next 12, 24 months, whatever time frame you think is appropriate, that people are going to be surprised by.
Well, we're focused on solving for an innovation around redemption to make a ubiquitous way to have consumers redeem offers and daily deals so that we can get that tracking, so that we can allow businesses to scale and focus on the problems that they want to do. So I think that is definitely one innovation that will be coming soon.
So any provider, any deal provider, any merchant,
Yep.
ubiquitous
way to do it.
I think people should watch out for the sharing side of, we're talking about data and transactions and interest. I think companies will do a better job at being able to sort of analyze that information and leverage how users are sharing offers or ads or transactions with each other and being able to monetize that.
So do you really think, before we get to you, let me just ask on that, do you really think that's really what's going to drive it, that there'll be a huge sharing aspect? People on Facebook? Or
well, perhaps users could be rewarded if they share it with a friend who actually converts on it, where you're seeing that as a great business model within some of these deal sites. And I think, too, that there's an opportunity for, as you're seeing with Google+, for companies outside of Facebook to be able to become, social leaders.
Yep.
I think the innovation is the entire category expands. And the offers and the content, if you will, that we share and distribute to consumers broaden. I think it's more about meat and potatoes, high frequency sort of stuff, pharmacy, grocery, etc., where people really want to save money week in, week out, rather than the somewhat discretional skydiving trip that your wife's encouraging you to take. So I think the innovation is making it more accessible for everybody. I'm thinking about my mom, I'm thinking about Main Street, and broadening the entire category.
Yeah, I remember actually when we did, it was grocery coupons, grocery store was number one, the next was gas.
Yeah.
It was gas. So what about time-based offers? I mean, that's the other thing that we keep hearing about. I don't want people at my establishment when I already have customers, and I also don't want my best customers using and taking advantage of these deals. I want really new people. How is that? What's going on behind the scenes to make that happen?
It's happening today. I think, again, when deals are distributed and targeting is predicated on transaction data, there are 5 or 6 simple data elements that our company receives across transactions. And frankly speaking, we can target a Taco Bell offer from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Because that is the promise of the brand.
And how do you make sure that it only gets redeemed during those hours?
Because when we get a copy of the authorization, we're able to instantly authorize the deal predicated on the timestamp of the transaction.
So it's all in real
you have
time.
a rules engine sitting there waiting to deliver the right deal to the right person in the right scenario. Time being a subset of scenario.
Tied to a credit card.
That's right.
So if they run the credit card through and it doesn't work, it has to actually meet the specific parameters.
Sure. Given authorization, yes. Or on the debit side, which is likely what's driving a QSR spend, money's there, funds are there. That's great. Enjoy your taco.
Any thoughts on that?
Radium One doesn't work with local, smaller base merchant advertisers, but we work with the national side of things. And from there, we can help advertisers generate a mass amount of conversions in a very short amount of time. And this has worked well with movie studios when they want exposures for video views or their movie trailers a couple days before the weekend launch. It's worked really well for AT&T when they were head-to-head with Verizon, the iPhone competition, and they wanted a lot of conversions on the renew your 2-year agreement and be rewarded with virtual currency or virtual gifts. And so I think from that perspective, we're able to generate 8 to 10 million conversions on these offers a month. And it's a great way to leverage this type of network versus only trying to run it through display type of advertising and waiting for the conversions, which, as everybody knows, less than 1%.
Yeah, and I think to add to what everybody else has said, I think that we need to enable this in the daily deal space. So in the prepaid offer space, a lot of the merchants that we talked to said they ran this very general deal, but if they were to do it again, and they all had a certain way they were going to limit the offer. So it was either, right, I'm going to limit my offer to days when my restaurant's slow or to certain hours of the day. And I think in the daily deal space, we need a technical solution to enable that because we don't want to have to rely on the person running the register. So I think that is definitely coming. The other thing that we heard a lot about in the daily deal space is that once the offer goes live, a lot of these small businesses are inundated with calls right off the bat. So it seems that there needs to be some sort of load balancing and maybe ways to reward your better consumers to get the more immediate start date. But some of these small businesses just can't take the flood of calls that come in right away. So that is also needed.
I was surprised at how much of an issue that was. I mean,
Yep.
At the time I was surprised, but in retrospect, right, there's only so much throughput at some of these small businesses. It's probably not the case on the AT&T
Well,
side.
it might be functional from the merchant perspective, but I actually think that it works from a marketing strategy too. Is, when I get on Gilt and it's, at night and I'd missed the morning opportunities and you see half of the clothes are sold out, it makes you think, oh, I should have logged on earlier, and, it's for a limited time only. So I think the companies that kind of show what's already sold, to prove validation, and then they show like the clock ticking down. I think that's a great way to get users to convert quickly.
Well, there's been some pretty stunning developments in the whole space in the last probably 24 months. It's great. It's great to see it. If we have any questions, can we pass a mic around? Open it up in case anyone has any questions. Let's talk about like the consumer end, because everyone wants this idea of time-based offers. I mean, you talk to a merchant, it's pretty clear. They might not be able to articulate it the same way, but fundamentally they get, like, if I'm not busy and I already have employees in the store and I don't have enough customers, if you can get someone here now today, that's worth a lot. It's worth, even some of the economics that we saw today, they'll pay a lot more, because even though some of these deals they may be break even or losing money on, they're losing way more in fixed costs already for some of these things that are already up. So I think that number still has room to go in the other direction. But like how do you drive enough traffic? We hear about email fatigue already in a lot of these merchants. There's a lot of these small regional sites that can't get enough traction. What do you guys think? Are we going to see consolidation around Amazon, Living Social, Groupon, Google, and a handful of other people that have consumer traffic, or is there going to be some other innovation out there that allows us to do time-based offers?
I think it's a great opportunity for online publishers as well